Hi, I'm Brittany Hall, and today we are at Howling Flats Farm, and we are going to be talking about their cow operation and how DIY has played into that. So if you could tell me who you are and a little bit about yourself and your farm.
Sure. My name's Kelley. We've owned Howling Flats Farm for about 12 years. Okay. I started with my son and now have 3 grandchildren that don't work yet, but will. We started with a couple of cattle that we had leased the pasture to a gentleman, and we ended up buying his cows. And then we got into hogs, and now have both a fall calving group and a spring calving group. Approximately just under 100 head altogether. That are Angus. We sell through a couple of different places. There's Essential Health in West Hartford, a health food store, and then I have a number of farm stands that sell our product during the season, along with their veggies, and a couple of small grocery stores as well. You can find us at howlingflatsfarm.com.
Can you talk a little bit about what humane handling means to you and your farm?
Sure. We're actually certified humane for our beef through A Greener World. I'm really proud of that certification. It really, so many labels don't mean anything nowadays, but they come out every year and audit. They go through my records. They go to every one of our pastures, every one of our fields where the cattle are, and their standards just make sense. So for me, again, it feels good to know that there's guidelines and to be recognized for following them.
Something unique about your farm is that you pasture your cows at a number of pastures. Can you talk a bit about how that makes things easier or more difficult for your operation?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm only 15 acres, so there's no way I could have this much. There's no way I could raise this many animals just here. So that's a huge help to be able to, have them on pasture, greener grass. The positive, obviously, is that there's feed. The downside is, even for instance, these girls have been calving down at the other location for the last 10 years. 2 weeks ago, we lost a calf to a coyote. So we loaded everybody up and brought them home so that they could be with the livestock guardian dogs to be protected. So, that's the drawback, is it's not my property, so my dogs aren't there. And you're at the mercy of the homeowners as far as how well the fence is or who's watching what. But I've been very lucky that this land is available. And allows me to continue to grow my business.
How have you worked to make the process of moving your cows around go smoothly? Because moving cows can be a headache and a bit stressful for you, but also the animals.
Right.
So how do you work with that?
So mainly we have load chutes at each of the locations, and they are secure. They're locked down load chutes, so that we're safe and the cows are safe too. And even though I am grass-fed, grass-finish, they do get about a half of a 5-gallon bucket of corn every day in their trough. That allows me, number one, to see every one of them walk every single day, to make sure that nobody's hurt, injured, and they come a-running when you shake that bucket, and it's a great handling tool.
What has been your method of finding pastures to bring your cows? Like, are you constantly out there talking to neighbors? Is it word of mouth? How is it that you've been able to make this work for you?
So far, it's just been a lot of luck. I'm fortunate to have some friends that we run our cows together. So pasture that they have, my cows are on. Their cows come here to calve. So really it's like a informal co-op arrangement.
So do most of the pastures you go to, do they have like water and shelter available, or is that something you have to worry about?
Well, always worry about, but every pasture has automatic water.
That's great.
That's been put in, and we have run-in sheds for calves. One of the other properties has a barn. Not as big as this, but a decent sized barn. And then the summer pasture has more of like a natural barn where they, cleared out the hedgerow and have an amazing shade.
I'm sure.
It's pretty cool. But the calves have their own, actual run-in shed and separate pen that they can go in if they want to.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about your barn here and how you've had to make this work for your needs? Because I think this was an old horse barn, right? And now you've got cows.
Yeah, I mean, the center stalls, I get that works for horses because you just close them in at night and call it a day. For me, I end up with these monstrosities all over the place. Separating it out because all of my animals always have access to outside unless I'm closing them up at night for their safety. But I have fenced and refenced and fenced and refenced and fenced and refenced more times than I care to admit. We've learned through trial and error that the blue gates are too flimsy for cows, that you really need the red heavy-duty gates to keep them from demolishing them. Pretty much everything I have is repurposed or can be repurposed or ends up in one spot or another. And I try to upgrade a little bit at least every year as things get too dilapidated. I've been trying to upgrade to all of the heavy duty stuff.
How much does one of these cost generally?
For red, probably, this is I think an 8-footer, so it's probably $250, $300.
So it's expensive to just buy a bunch of those at once. Can you walk me through your fencing? So you've had to put all of this in either yourself or hiring or getting grants. Can you just tell me about how you've gotten all of this fenced in?
Sure. I was fortunate to get a farm transition grant 2 years ago, which helped me re-fence this area. This used to be one big sort of pen, which allowed me to separate, which is really helpful. And also to fence the entire perimeter. So this fencing, I hired a contractor because of the grant money that I received. But pretty much all of the other fencing, I've done with friends, with family. I'm fortunate that a friend has a pounder that goes on the tractor, so I can just pound posts. So let's see, a cattle panel 16 feet long, and they're usually $20 thereabouts. Last I looked anyway. Fence posts are probably 15 each, and a bucket of staples and a lot of Band-Aids.
Can you tell me how DIY has played a role in your experience as a farmer?
Well, mostly because I was clueless. I don't come from a farming background. Didn't know anything, still don't know anything, I think, a lot of days. So I've been fortunate that it's a great farming community that I live in. People are beyond helpful and more than willing to give advice, tell you when you've done it wrong, and help you out. It all ends up being DIY because of what's happening in the moment. You have to learn to react, and you can't just be rigid with how you think it's going to go, because that's not usually the case. All
right. Can you tell me about your cattle scratchers? Where did you get those?
I got lucky, really. I have a neighbor that works for one of the local town crews.
Okay, and they're street sweepers, right?
They are recycled street sweepers.
Okay.
Yes. I'm fortunate that he snags them when they get swapped out. I know that there's a waiting list pretty much in every town because they're awesome. The cows, the goats, the sheep, the dogs, I think everybody loves to scratch on them, which keeps them from scratching and rubbing on my fence, which is a huge help for me. I'm fortunate that I don't have a lot of flies. We feed a garlic salt, which sounds kind of crazy, but Redmond agricultural garlic salt smells amazing. but it actually does work. It really cuts down on the amount of flies on the animals. But obviously they do still get some. They do have a fly bag in the shade structure that they can hit and sort of self-apply. But, you know, nothing feels better than scratching an itch. And I like for them to have the option.
Can you tell me about your shade structure you have here? Is it repurposed from something else?
Yeah, that was actually a chicken structure. I think they call it a chicken, but I've had it set up just for the calves mostly, although the big girls, they seem to prefer the barn, but just to allow them shade. We have a variety. We've got that kind of shade structure. I've got the Quonset hut, Porta hut shade structures, which are really nice. I love that they're portable, they're warm in the winter, they're cool in the summer. Even the big cows will back right into one.
Can you just walk me through like the full life cycle of your cows and why it was important to you to do it this way instead of bringing in younger calves?
Sure. Well, first off, being in order to be certified humane, it has to be my own calves.
Okay.
The animal welfare approval or certification process, you can't buy feeder calves because they didn't come from animal welfare approved herds, or there's no guarantee that they did. So first and foremost, that would be one reason. I like the calving process. I like knowing, you know, we have really good breed stock. We've got some really good cows. We make sure that we have a good bull, genetic wise. Our calves hit the ground running. You know, we breed for that kind of vigor and health. Good feet, good temperament, all of those types of things. So the calves stay with their moms for anywhere between 7 and 10 months, depending on which group it is for when we're going to wean. We have different locations for the steers to go versus where the heifers go. So the calves are about 9 to 10 months when they're weaned, and then they're just around 2 when they go for processing.
Okay.
And most of the cows we keep for about 10 years. Generally speaking, that's about the life expectancy for them, for fear that they'll have trouble calving or, you know, have other medical issues. So.
Do you have any advice for anyone who's interested in starting out with raising cows as a beginner farmer?
I would say don't base your business on leased land. And it's hard to even imagine starting out buying land, and I get that, but I think that you know, I've heard of a lot of farmers, not so much livestock, but veggie farmers that, you know, they've invested all of this time and energy, and then they lose their leased land. And, you know, now what do you do when you have animals? So I think that unless you have, you know, assurances that where your animals are is secure, safe for them, and is going to be around for a little while, I wouldn't do it.